Hello friends! Today we are talking about steampunk. And I want to go a little bit into why I wanted to cover this subject, what my thoughts were, and, well, I guess kind of cover the basics of what steampunk is. I know it might sound obvious, but so many people get the concept of steampunk wrong that I want to make sure that we discuss steampunk in general and what it means and how to do it effectively. For anyone new here, hi, I'm Jade the Kobold. It's a pleasure to meet you. I've been in the games industry for the past 8 years or so, and before then I worked as an actor. I stream now, both for game development streams, as well as for, video game streams. Hello to Zethnerlith, hello to Weaslery, hello to Tuzzy, hello to Susan Blue Robot, hello to Democleus, hello to Sapphire, hello to Tuzzy, hello to Blue Elf, and hello to Hensha. You're all wonderful beings, and thank you so much for joining me today. So, steampunk is... Okay, so let me start back up a step. I had agreed during the online convention, the Ferality event, that I might assist in making another event. Not for Ferality, but for another online VR-related convention. And I says to myself, that sounds fun, I can do that. And then a few days later, I just started brainstorming. I'm like, okay, if I were making a new event, what kind of themes would I spitball? And I just sort of like brainstormed in the way that my brain mind does. A whole bunch of different themes, a whole bunch of different concepts, a whole bunch of different ideas that might be interesting directions to take this sort of event. And one that stuck out to me and ended up being steampunk. And then I proceeded to spend the next several hours sitting in a chair, vividly, somewhere between imagining you know how when you get like hyper fixated and hyper focused, your imagination borderline becomes hallucination, where you just sort of like you're picturing yourself in this design room with other people going, but what if we did this? And then you're responding on their behalf going, okay, but what about that? I don't know, maybe that's just me, but that's a thing that happens. And hello, Kirix. So I says to myself, let's work this out on stream. I had a bunch of ideas, and the general idea that I want to go with is this is going to be for a theoretical, non-existent VR convention. If you want to know what my thoughts about running a convention, whether it's anime, science fiction, or other in VR's chat, there'll be a link in the top corner for how to get there. Not right now because I'm live and I can't do that while I'm live, but if I remember, I'll put a link in the top corner for that. And if I don't remember, call me out in the comments. Okay, so what is steampunk? Steampunk is one of those designs that has never really been mainstream popular, but has never not been popular. For the past 100 or so years, there's been this lingering idea in the cultural mindset that steampunk is a cool idea. We should try that again someday. And it's just sort of lingered in a way that's really fun. It simultaneously is timeless and very, very dated. Steampunk is a type of neo-futurism. Neo-futurism is where you have a design that people used to think the future would be like. I'll say it again. It's neo-futurism, pardon me. Retrofuturism actually is a proper name for it. Retrofuturism is what people from the past thought the present, or in some cases the future, would be like. So in the modern day, this would be like people in the future going back and saying, wow, things really aren't like Star Trek, but Star Trek was kind of cool. What if they were, though? How cool would that be? And going back and bringing back what we have now as our science fiction and comparing it to what they had before. One very common example of this, I mean, it's common in many versions of science fiction, but one of these very common images that you'll see is the idea of 1950s retrofuturism, which is the Jetsons. You know, this is what people from the 50s thought the far distant future of the year 2000 would be like. Like, the Jetsons takes place in, like, 2003 or something like that. And there's flying cars, there's fancy haircuts, there's immaculate popped collars. And that's the general concept of retrofuturism. Fallout is probably the most common example of 1950s retrofuturism. But steampunk goes back farther into what is going to be the retrofuturism, or what would have been, potentially, the retrofuturism of early industrialization England. Usually England. Not always England, sometimes you get the American West in there. But if we're being honest, it's more often England than it's not England, right? It just sort of is very steeped in that Victorian England ideal. And this is what messes with a lot of people's heads. A lot of people think of steampunk and their brain goes not towards retrofuturism as a concept, but towards the modern aesthetic of steampunk, which is not incorrect, but also not necessarily interesting. You get things like, I'm not gonna call out any specific creators, but this is, as an example, here's a hat that is literally being sold right now as a quote-unquote steampunk hat. What is this hat doing? Someone tell me what this hat's doing. What is this gear? Hold on, where's my arrow? What is this gear doing? It's literally just a gear fabricked onto a hat. You know, the alchemist jars, I kind of dig that. That's cool. The goggles are iconic to steampunk. I get it. And having a tiny pair of scissors, perfectly reasonable. But this as a whole makes no sense. This doesn't make sense. Whereas if we take something that is more appropriately steampunk, you get the... Where's a good example? You get something that has more of that Victorian flair. You have the Victorian flair and the aesthetic and the cut and the style of the cravat, but you have some modern leakings in with the gloves, some modern styles, the glasses. The hat is a lot more clean and a different angle than it would have been actually accurate to Victorian eras. You have a mix of these two eras. And that's what steampunk is supposed to be about, is the blending of neo-futurism. So while there is a lot of phenomenal steampunk out there, and like this is incredible. This is taking that retrofuturism. It's taking the concepts that existed out in that time period and making them into a science fiction if that time period had its own type of science fiction. Because science fiction as a genre, you have to remember, is relatively new. Science fiction as an entire genre and concept is a relatively new idea. People always thought about the future. People have always thought about the future. Anything between Ragnarok and Revelation, there's always been people who are thinking about the future. But the idea of thinking about taking the current trends of technology and developing them into a future sort of only is a couple hundred years old in the way that we know it today, in the way that we see science fiction through a modern lens. Does that make sense? So that's kind of what I'm going to be going off of, is this idea of the H.G. Wells / Jules Verne, actually I have a Jules Verne here, style of retrofuturistic neo-Victorian conceptualization. There is also the weird American West style of steampunk, which I'm not going to go into, not because I don't like America. That's not exactly the point. I'm not going to go into that because that's not what I'm going to focus on. That's literally the only reason. I'm not saying it's not valid. There's also very interesting fantasy steampunk and very well made Japanese steampunk, which ends up being closer to the 1950s style retrofuturism than what we think of steampunk. Though I will make one quick gripe Was someone who has worked on steampunk theater production, you totally get the discrepancy? Yeah. I'm glad. Yeah. I haven't actually worked on a steampunk theater production, but I know people who have, and this has been one of their gripes as well. I know a couple people who have been in theater productions of steampunk dinner theaters, actually. Dinner theater is a really cool thing, but I'm not going to get into right now. Anyways. One quick gripe. We still use steam power. Like, one quick gripe is that we still use steam power. Every single type of power that we use is still based off steam. Whether it comes from coal, natural gas, or nuclear. Every big major power plant is using something that makes something hot to convert water into steam to move a turbine. It's still steam. We're still using steam. Like, that's just what it is. So, not for nothing. Also, one other thing. I decided within the last 10 minutes. Well, okay, how long? I'm already 20 minutes. Wait, hold on. No shot. I'm already 10 minutes into the stream? Good jeez. Within the past half hour, I did look at the Wikipedia article for Steampunk just to really quick sanity check myself, and... Oh, where is it? Dang it, there was a really funny line. It's a Wikipedia article that actually has the line like something. Indeed, it is seen as something. It's like, okay, yeah, somebody into steampunk definitely wrote this article because they they had that weird steampunky faux European accent. Anyways. This is going to be a collaborative stream. If you have extra brain thinks that you want to contribute, put them in chat. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you hate it, hit the dislike button. Fair is fair. And don't forget to subscribe if you like more content. That's how I know that people like content. And lastly, we do have a membership button. It costs less than a Twitch subscription. And yet, it feels better because you're not giving money to Amazon. If you subscribe to me, you're not giving money to Amazon. That's why if you donate money to me, it does not go to Amazon. That's why this is better, in fact, than a Twitch Prime subscription. Anyways, onwards to Steampunk. Also, I like this hat. I like this here. Oh, let me actually get the actual image here before my edit. And I just want to call this out. And hello, Virtual. Atacador Virtual. I do want to call out this here, because this actually is a pretty cool example of steampunk. It is not just random gears welded on. There is the nice Victorian-style hat filigree here. The light bulb could be argued to be functional. There's another small light over here, which certainly seems reasonable. This, as a headset mouthpiece, is a perfectly reasonable addition. Having a headset mouthpiece makes sense, right? It just makes sense depending on what you're doing with it. And, well, making that into a steampunk style is not just adding on bits of things that are of the same color as steampunk, right? It's not like this is brown, therefore it's steampunk. It's, hey, these are components that make sense for the person to be using, and with this retrofuturistic model. So retrofuturism is going to be one of the concepts I'm going to be running off of. And the other concept I'm going to be running off of is the idea of a convention. This is going to be creating... I think I'm going to design, rather, 4 or so rooms that are going to be the convention spaces that mirror the convention spaces that were at Ferality. That are going to be at that type of event. Those are going to be... I'm going to make one of these pages here a notepad. So we need one... No, I'm typing white on white. Don't do that. And we're going to left align this. There we go. So the first area that we're going to be making is going to be a commons area where people just go and gather together. And start brainstorming along where we go down this path. You remember, we're taking this journey together. This is going to be a gathering area where people meet up and and most importantly, this is going to be people's first impressions of the convention. This is going to be people's entrance, and thus it needs to set the theme, the tone, set the stage for the entire thing. 2, the second thing we have to do is create a meetup area. This is going to be a smaller, more intimate area that is going to need to fit the same aesthetic and going to need to fit a continuity of region, because continuity is going to be very important. I'm going to want to eventually connect all these areas together such that you can feel like you're going from one place to another as you're changing from zone to zone. 3 is going to be the dealers area, which is, of course, a convention staple. You have to have a dealer's hall. 4 is going to be main events. Now let's type events here. But yeah, the main events / programming hall, where you are able to host your main events. And then 5 is going to be the club. Because with these 5 pieces of the puzzle, you have a convention on your hands. You have a convention on your hands that can do cool stuff. Now, there's other things that you can have. Again, if you want to be looking into what you need to be able to run an online VR convention, check the other stream. I go into a lot more detail about convention management there. I have over 20 years of convention management and of running conventions experience. From conventions ranging from as low as 75 people to as large as oh golly, I'm gonna call myself out here. To as large as 200,000. Yeah, to as large as 200,000 people. Those are the scales of convention events that I have either worked with directly or worked with tangentially. Everywhere from 75 to 200,000. So I got some background. Democleus is pointing out a couple things about dieselpunk and steampunk. Those are 2 separate genres. Let me just double verify myself before I check anything. Dieselpunk is also retrofuturistic. It is, but it's more late in the Industrial Revolution. It does combine a lot of the retrofuturism of the 1950s in the same way, but it's usually darker, it's usually grittier, and it's usually working a bit more in the industrial sector, having a bit more industrialization. Which is good. I mean, that's a perfectly valid and interesting genre. But it's not exactly what we're going to be going for here, though we will be drawing on some dieselpunk aesthetic, and you'll understand why when we get there. We're also, you know, let me pull up a picture. Let me show up a picture of dieselpunk stuff, because it is interesting. Here's a good one. Dieselpunk is more of the aesthetic of... It has a much more wartime aesthetic, frankly, to be blunt. If you take away the Victorian England style and replace it with a much more militaristic focus, that tends to be what will end up as dieselpunk. It's very similar in how you get there. They're both retrofuturism, right? They're both retrofuturistic conceptualizations. But the way that you get there is important. And we're not going to be focusing on militaristic designs. Yes, there is. There's an image on the clipboard. I put it there. No. Well, I guess there isn't. I guess I'm wrong. Okay. And a good example of dieselpunk. What? What? Copy image. Well, fine. Dieselpunk, you could actually argue Mad Max is dieselpunk. It's not exactly, but it kind of is. It's the it's the militaristic retrofuturism of a late 50s, early 60s era. What I consider the Rocketeer dieselpunk. That's actually a really interesting question, and I think there's a strong argument to be made that it is yes. So I'm going to say yes. Rocketeer is a extremely militaristic set. Although like, the setting is just straight up 1950s, right? It's just 1950s with one element that is added to it, right? It's Yeah. Okay, so. One other comment I want to point out, because I'm going to come back to it just because it's one of my favorite aesthetics, is solar punk. Because I think that solar punk is criminally underrepresented and staggeringly beautiful. Solar punk is kind of like, you know, what if city planning was cool? Like, what if our cities looked like this and were environmentally stable and people and the cities were walkable and you could, like, you know, live in them? That'd be kind of neat. Anyways, solar punk is incredible and I adore it. This is actually genuinely one of my favorite aesthetics. I'm not going to be actually going too deep into solar punk, but the only reason being that that's not what this is about. Right? This is a stream about diesel punk. I will hopefully see more solar punk stuff in the future. Just in general, because like the aesthetic of solar punk is like just staggeringly beautiful to me personally. But that's not what we're about here. Today we're about steampunk, and specifically the Victorian style of steampunk. Now, for the main commons area. Now, also, warning to everybody, I am not an artist. I am a famously bad artist. So, these are all concept sketches. If you want to be angry about my art, do it. Be angry. Yell at me in the comments. Just go into the comment section and tear me apart. Please, I insist. It'll be great. I need as many clicks as I can get. Okay, great. So. You think that diesel punk gets more inspiration from the 40s than the 50s or 60s? That's fair, but the most important thing in diesel punk is the militaristic angle. You can't have diesel punk without militaristic angles. Like, I've never, ever, prove me wrong if you want to, I have never seen diesel punk that is not heavily focused on military development. So to me, the defining feature of that genre is more about the militaristic angle than anything else, frankly. Let me burn some of these other pictures. Well, you know, actually I should probably keep a few other reference brain thoughts around. So let me just pull up a perfect steampunk. I just did a Google image search for steampunk city. I'm going to open a couple of tabs here and just put a couple of reference visuals in here so that I have them. And again, the idea of these is to this is a good one. This is a really good one. Is to get that retro-futuristic Victorian era London, but what if Victorian era London still was Victorian era London, just with more modern technology? This one has a cute anime girl on it too. Sure, I'm into it. Sounds good. All right. So first we need the commons area. What are we doing for the commons area? Well, this one I've already got a bit of a head start here. Hold on a second here. So you love the solar punk aesthetic, but disapprove of the term punk to describe it. I would use something more like solar core. Punk involves a particular emphasis on how those words are often repressive in the narrative center on the countercultural. The core aesthetics do not present countering the repressive culture. I disagree. I see where you're coming from, and I absolutely respect how you're getting there. But I do disagree with you, because I think the idea of a utopian society that is beautiful and well curated and handled is very counter to what our current culture is. Am I wrong? Am I wrong about that? Seriously. I think that the idea of a utopian society where everybody is happy and getting along genuinely counts as punk these days if you look outside a window. Because, okay, I could talk... this isn't the infrastructure... I'll do an infrastructure stream in the future, I promise. We will talk about North American infrastructure and how the US and Canada have just, like... Anyways, we're not getting into that right now. So, yeah, I get where you're coming from. I do. So, this right here was Project Garden Bridge. Project Garden Bridge was never made. This is... Hold on, is this the... Yeah, the Thames Garden Bridge. When was this actually proposed? This was proposed not that long ago, I want to say, but I'm going to fact check myself live on stream. This was proposed only a couple years ago, only back in 2017. The idea was what you see here. It is a bridge, a footbridge across the Thames that also functions as a... you heard it, passing a bill in Canada that will hurl... Yeah, That's... Yeah, I know. That was going to be functionally be a piece of the green belt in London proper, across the Thames. I wish this got greenlit. It should have been, and let's be honest, in 2017, 175 million pounds? That's not that much compared to how important of a project this would have been, how beautiful this would have been. This would have been an incredible park area. This would have been a park area across the Thames. I love this concept. I think it's beautiful. I think it's stunning. And it got canned. It got canceled. It just got canned, which is tragic. But I want to use this as my base because I love the aesthetic of it. And I think that this actually fits some of that retro-futuristic concept. I feel like the Garden Bridge represents, to me, some steampunk ideals. That is the adding this and using a Victorian England backdrop, taking this idea here of this little natural area, but then putting it into this world, I think would just be beautiful. And again, it's more important for it to be pretty at the end of the day than for it to be perfectly accurate to everything. So we are going to be looking at things that are pretty and for good design. And again, I also have another stream about iceberg design, where it is very important to look at design concepts and that they can give you a backbone for the rest of your conceptualizations. Just checking chat. Hi, you're all wonderful people. I love you. Okay, so let's take this general idea here for shape and for some of the aesthetic. And then we also want to do... This is also going to come into something else later on, so don't worry, it's going to be like a thing. And the idea of these airstrips, there was actually genuinely a plan to put a airstrip on top of the London train station at one point. Alright, so taking this general idea here and this presentation, let us just quickly sketch out a map. Why is mine not fighting around the map? Hold on. That works. Why am I not... Okay, whatever. Not sure what I did different. Okay, good. It works now. So right here we have... This in the center is the river. And for here we have this interesting shape design here. Do I have a mirror tool? Hold on, is there a... I just remember that mirror tools exist in some drawing programs. No, I don't think I have one. Oh well. So, this is a park in a steampunk area. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to, that is going to be in here, because I'm putting it in the comments because I don't think it needs its own section. Is the Artist Alley. And I'm incorporating that into the main lobby. Ferality did the same thing, and I think it's a good idea. I just do not like how they handled it. I think Ferality's Artist Alley was handled poorly because it was not signposted well. But that's something that we can handle here. Okay, so what do we need for the convention space to have? It has to have... It has to have an opening vista. It needs to have a beautiful shot. And that's part of why I thought about this. If we can have the player / attendee come in from the sky on something like this and land... Start here and travel to here, they can open up with a beautiful view of the entire area. And that view, I think this pencil's not thick enough. And that view is going to serve a very important purpose because that's your first impression. That is your first impression of the convention itself. If we can put the player on a vehicle, then we can show it off. We can show off the entire region and get this beautiful spectacle view, as well as having a steamboat in the background, as well as having a steampunk city in the background that's going to be actually more Victorian than this image here, which shows a more modern city. We can have a ferry ship, like an actual proper ferry ship. We can add more steampunk aesthetic to the background of what would otherwise be a fairly nature-focused area. But I think the nature focus is going to be beautiful. I'm just going to say that. It's just straight up going to be beautiful. You know what I'm saying? And yes, vehicles are a very common trope in many steampunk conceptualizations. What does a vehicle look like? Well, we have the actual steampunk here. This is like, genuinely of what the world will look like. Yeah, a trip to the opera in the year 2000. When was this drawn, actually? Let me check that real quick. One tick here. That was drawn... Yeah. This was drawn in 1902 as a concept of what a trip to the opera would look like in the year 2000. So this is basically as literal steampunk as you can get. This is like genuinely actual steampunk of what people in the 1900s thought the future would look like. And look at these dresses. Look at this lad. Look at these airship designs. You have guards on their little skiffs. You have big old boarding platforms. And I think, actually, I like the boarding platform the more I think about it. So let me take that and incorporate it. Let me delete the... Yeah, sure. Let me delete that out. Bucket fill that with white. And create it as a platform. If we can have a platform here... that the player starts on. That will also make the programming easier because then the player can spawn on the platform proper. So this is the spawning point. And then every couple of seconds, a airship. We'll call it an airship. We'll just say it's a steampunk airship. That's a very common trope. Googling steampunk airship top results gets me this, which kind of, I'm actually not going to do the top one because I want to get more of the dirigible style. Ooh, that's a cute... Ooh, I like that. Ooh, I like this one a lot. Okay, let me show you what I'm looking at. Why do you spin? Look at that. Look at how cool is that. I love it. So, let's take a airship from here that travels down this way. Grab this color. Just make notes of lines. And say that this airship spawns every minute, every 30 seconds, every 2 minutes. I don't know. Well, not spawns, but it rotates. So the airship goes down to here, drops off all the people, and then flies up and around. Now, don't let players onto it. Have it just dump the people here. But then have it fly up and around so that as a set piece. So that when you look up in the air, at every point that you are standing in the area, you can see a giant floating airship that is, to the best of your knowledge, ferrying people between this dock and the convention space. What is the dock on? I have no idea. The dock can just be, you know what? Heck it, just make it on a blimp. Just make it properly on a steampunk dirigible. Let me get a good dirigible picture. So let me actually take this and move this over here to just so that we can reference that that's that. And then let me grab our blimp. And now we also have another important thing, and that is that we have a set piece. Now, everywhere in this world, people will be able to look in the sky and they will be able to see this blimp. This will be a constantly recurring point throughout every other design that we do. So there's our core, some of our core steampunk elements. If it's on a set circular pattern, wouldn't it make a good fast travel system and a repeatable event? It could, absolutely. Absolutely. But I only want this one right now, for now, to bring the players from this spawning point to the area. But it gives the impression of ferrying people back and forth. Even though it will never bring anybody from here to here, it gives the impression of a constantly moving trip. And while it's up here, it can go do some wiggles, it can do some epicycles, you know, it can maybe even go on a holding pattern once every 10 minutes or something, just for visual effects. Doesn't matter. People spawn here, they can see the city. They can look around, and behind them, they see an airship. We don't have to draw any of the stuff out here. Well, we do have, we have to be on Skybox. We only have to Skybox the area out here because we can have the player be on the airship without the ability to look behind them. You see what I'm saying? And then the player spawns here and they get this stunning vista. They get this look. They get this image, and that is their entrance. If the player is on this platform and they are looking into the distance, where's another? Do I have another overhead angle artwork of Garden Bridge? Hold on. Thames Garden Bridge. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Now, obviously, with this not going to be this background. This is the background of 2017 London, which was the idea for the actual Garden Bridge. But this would be the image that the player sees from the airship, with Steampunk Ultra whatever. Steampunk Con Ultra whatever. Perfect. And this can be a image that will appear when the player is on that platform, and it will disappear as soon as, or fade away, I should say, as soon as they get onto the airship. The ferry airship. And that will bring them down to, again, here. Cool. So the player sees this, they see the welcome sign, they are caught up in awe and wonder and beauty. Behind them... Hello? Behind them, like directly behind them on the platform itself, can be controls. And yes, make the airship a prop when the players are not being ferried. Exactly. The airship is still there because it is a set piece and a beautiful moment, and at any time, it's a moving reference marker. Usually when you have a reference marker, it's so that people can place themselves. Having a moving reference marker can defeat the purpose of having a reference marker in an open world game. It absolutely can, because, you know, if you have, like, Breath of the Wild, or if you have Elden Ring, if the Elden Ring tree moves, then you are disoriented, right? That's so often used as my where am I in the world marker that you will be disoriented if it's not there. However, if you look, anytime you are in the world and you look up and you see the Elden tree, you have this moment of splendor, right? You have this moment of, oh my gosh, this is stunningly beautiful from everywhere in the game. So what we're doing here is not as ornate, but we are having this moment of, oh, look up. Oh, there's the airship running by. That's right. I'm in a steampunk world. Do you see what I'm saying? It reinforces that. So back here are the world controls. The world controls are how much your computer can handle. If you're on the Quest, then you're going to have much lower stuff. If you're on a low-end graphics card, then you can change things. If you're on a high-end graphics card, you can enable additional skybox options or visual effects or draw distances or whatever. That way you have it right here. And I like the idea of forcing the player to wait for the next ferry, because it creates a very natural meeting space. There's no reason for the ferry to spawn here, right? Actually, hold on 1 second here. Now, if we're being perfectly honest, and people will complain about this, I will warn you right now. I am intentionally making something that I am fully cognizant players will complain about. Players will immediately go to your forums and say, hey, why did it spawn us up here and force us to wait upwards of 4 minutes for the next airship to come by? What the heck? What the heck, devs? Why'd you do that to us? Why'd you make the player wait? Don't you care about the player experience? Like, no. No. My dude, my friend, my brother. It is more important to create an establishing shot. I have said hundreds of times before that it is more important to make a game memorable than to make it convenient for the player. It is more important to learn from cinema than it is to learn from a lot of other game designs. Cinema will teach us a lot, and this is our establishing shot. This is what the player sees when they first enter the game. This is what the player is going to look at, and by forcing the player to wait, you are also letting them organically meet the other people who spawn in around the same time and talk to them, because again, it's a convention space. People want to talk. And you are quite literally forcing them. Actually what? I've decided something. I have decided something just now. It's more important, I think that would increase the likelihood of people to talk to each other. But I've just decided that this is going the opposite direction. We're making the players wait. We are going all in on making the players appreciate this experience. We're going clockwise now. We're not going with the shins anymore. We are going clockwise and having them go all the way around so they can see as much as they can of the main area before they get there. I think that's good because that flyover will let you see what's there. It'll let you see the area that you're about to descend into. Now let's talk about what's in the area. This is a garden. Speedrunners, yeah, true. I have every intention of doing a stream defending auto-scrollers, and I know I'm going to get hate for it, but, boy howdy, I don't care. Auto-scrollers are valid game design, and I will die on this hill. Anyway, if used well, anyways. There's a bunch of caveats there that this isn't that stream. But it might be in the future, which is why you should subscribe for that future stream. So what we have here is this convention space. And again, this is for a convention. This isn't for a game. If this was for a game, I would be willing to do the same thing. Go play Prey. You could get the same effect by watching the opening credits. Go watch the opening sequence of Prey and go, wow, this is really cool and well designed, and then go play the rest of the game because it's a really good game. Or, better yet, watch my playthrough. But you don't have to do that because right now we're working on this here. The idea is that the establishing shot helps make the world more memorable. That's really what I'm getting at here. So, what do we have in the central area? We want an artist alley and we want multiple places for people to gather, for people to talk, for people to just be. And then we also want to have the Artist Alley in this. We want to make this the Commons area and the Artist Alley area. Not the Meetup, because that's supposed to be more intimate. Not the Dealer's Hall, because that has to be its own area, for reasons I'll explain later. Not main events, because you want to have that more streamlined. And not the club, because this is nothing like the club. But the Artist Alley and the Commons, you could combine Artist Alley into the Dealer's Hall, but then you are going to be rendering too many things. If you mix the Artist Alley into the Dealer's Hall, your room is going to be so laggy you will never be able to handle it. If you mix the Artist Alley into the club, honestly, based. That sounds awesome. If you have the club and then have your Artist Alley stuff on the wall, the only problem is that the artists aren't going to get the respect because people are going to be paying attention to the club, not the art. You know, it takes the connection away from the artists there, whereas it doesn't if we put it in the comments. If you put the Artist Alley in main events, no one cares, because people go to main events for the event, they don't care about the world. Main events is, we're actually going to shortchange main events in general, and I'll explain why later. And if you mix up the Artist Alley in the Meetup area, I think you can do that, but you risk the Meetup area losing its sense of small, close intimacy. I will actually be linking these together a bit, but we'll show you when we get there. Like I said, I just, you know... This is still brainstorm and we're still working on this together, but I have already pre-thought out a bunch of stuff about how this would work together. So, what's in here? What is here? What is this land? First of all, a dock. I mean, it sounds obvious, right? We have... Where's my color? There's a little low platform area here with a... yeah, with a big, grandiose entrance that will mirror something like this, except with having the background areas be steampunk, and instead of brick, this will probably be like brass platings or something. Like instead of the railing will probably be all brass and bronze, because it's steampunk. You gotta look. You just gotta. But this sort of area here, this sort of vista, is very Victorian. This is a very Victorian garden style layout, which I think helps a lot. Because the idea of the Victorian garden, something like this, is a very natural, very classical Victorian concept. And because steampunk is inherently and intrinsically rooted in Victorian England and the aesthetic thereof, I think that that's a really nice linking point to bring, simultaneously use something that is steampunk inherently and bring it into a new place. We're not just going to be copying the same dingy city that every other steampunk artist has done. This lets us bring us a new type of Victorian area. So what do I want here? I'm gonna take these greens, bring it a little darker, and this area is going to be large. Keep in mind, this is going to be large. This is going to be this real size, right? This is intended to be the size of the River Thames. So we have, in the center, we have a park area. Cool. In that park area, I think it would be good to just keep good aesthetics, right? Just don't sweat too heavily about the steampunk aesthetic in here. Just keep the Victorian aesthetic in here. As soon as people go in here, they will remember that they're in a steampunk area because they'll be seeing the airship, because they'll be seeing the background, the city in the background. Because they're going to be seeing a whole bunch of people wearing steampunk stuff, because of course they are. So I would keep this area more of a hard Victorian so as not to overflood the... just to keep it more diverse, right? To keep the same aesthetic but more diverse. Which again is just good design principling. You want to have a consistent aesthetic, but you also want to have a unique world. You know, you want your world to be beautiful and interesting and stand out while still being... having a consistency to it. You want all of your zones to feel like they can work together while still feeling distinct. And in all of these areas, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking the ideals of Victorian society in Victorian England aesthetics and then steampunkifying them. And the way we're steampunkifying them here is with the dock, with the landing area, with the dirigible, and with the dinghy. So, this area here is beautiful. We have a walking path split. People can go in either direction, and this is where I want to put Artist Alley, because this is going to be big. This is a big area. This is going to be a big, fancy place, and along the sides here, we can put up the art pieces as though they were genuinely just works of art, as though they were arts, just, you know, arts that were placed in public. So, like, you know, we just have here a whole bunch of pedestals, not like VR chat pedestals with avatars, but just like, you know, have museum pedestals. Where's a museum pedestal that I can pull as a reference image? A pedestal with a painting on it. Give me a painting. These are all... There we go. That's what I'm looking for. These are all like this. Put that there and put a linking reference. Should be thinner. There. These are all pedestals that show art on them. Shouldn't people be able to walk through the park? Of course. Wait, what? I'm confused by that question. Absolutely. This is going to be a large area. This is going to be a large enough area. Like, this is the scale. Like, this is the scale. This is a 6,000 square meter bridge area. This is the center area right here will absolutely be walkable, and on the sides we'll be putting these pictures. So this, I want to do this to scale, because I want this to actually be, basically be England in the background. So yeah, the idea is that this is going to be these scales. This is going to be a lot bigger than what I'm drawing. I'm just drawing locational stuff to clarify for each region. Like, the pedestal is not going to be this big. Realistically, the pedestals are probably going to be like this big here, you know? Like, they're going to be smaller affairs, and then there's going to be the walking path. That's going to be linking them all. So realistically, these are going to be more small. So on one side, we have the Artist Alley. This is nice. This is beautiful. Actually, do we want it on this side? Yes, we do, because we wanted to have some of the art pieces visible as sculptures. And that'll appear as an Art in the Park sort of exhibit area. I think that'll look real nice. Do I have any more visual references for artwork on a pedestal? All the other artwork on pedestals are sculptures, which is fair, and that's how it usually goes, but because this is going to be, most likely, most of the artwork is going to be 2D, so I think this is actually the best image reference I have, and I really like it, actually. Not, obviously, we would have to steampunkify the pedestal itself. Let me just pull up a bronze pedestal. Perfect. Oh, that's actually bronze. Oh, not perfect, but fine. That one works. There, something like that. And also, this is how I sketch out level designs anyways. This is... Okay, cards on the table, I am usually not the level designer proper. What I do is I do this, and then I hand this off to the level designer and say, can you see where I'm going with this? That's basically what I say is, can you figure out, do you understand what I'm trying to create here? If not, let's talk about it, and I'll go into more detail. But I'm not the one who actually makes the levels themselves, but I'm the one who designs what's going to be in them. Does that make sense? Anyways, that's where I am in the process. Because this, yeah. Anyways. So we have a park area. We have a lush park area. I probably should just. No, this would. And if this were an actual project, this image would be sent along with all of the reference images that I use. All the reference images that I pulled up would be in the same zip file, and they would be cross-referenced. Like, I would actually include, like this in here, right here, and just, I'm not doing that because it doesn't look that pretty. You can ask Blue Elf to verify that this is all true. Because I've actually worked with him on some of these projects. This is how I do things sometimes. Hey, Blue Elf, remember that website that you made? Is this any different? Look, it's true. This is... Anyways. What I would also do is I would include slightly different artwork here. Well... And this would be the official artwork. This would be some of the official artwork here. These would be, what are these? These would be, yeah, these would be official art pieces. So these would be the ones that were made by the convention staff or by, the ones that we want to highlight the most, right? No advertising in this area at all. I think that's important to say. Is that even if you have sponsors, this area wants to be free of advertisement, because even if you're trying to make money, and you are, because at the end of the day, you are trying to make enough money to fund the next event, or the next game, or the next project, or what it is. I hate to say it, but at the end of the day, you are trying to hit your bottom line. But you can't let people realize that. This has to be a passion project. This has to look like something that people think they made this because they love this space. And that has to also be true. It has to be at least some level of genuine. But at the end of the day, you do need to make enough money to fund the next event. So you need to blend, you need to be conscious of both of these things. You need to be simultaneously making the event as beautiful as you can to make it look like it's just a project of passion, while simultaneously making sure you hit your bottom line. This is more of a commentary towards the game developers out there, because I know you guys are out there. You need to just remember your scope, right? You want your passion projects to make money, and you want to make money off of things that look like passion projects, and you want, at the end of the day, for your players not to be able to tell the difference between the two. You want the players to think that your passion projects are good and are perfect and wonderful and beautiful, and you want the players to think that everything's a passion project. And ideally, it all is, but at the end of the day, it's not always true, right? We know that. We all know that. On that note, you can subscribe to the channel and donate money. You do not have to. This genuinely is a passion project for me, or is it? No, it is. But I would like this to be my job someday. So, on this side, we have the Artist Alley. In the center, we have Flora. That's the word I'm looking for. Flora. And on the perimeter, we have everything else that reinforces the steampunk. We have this beautiful airship, and we have a secondary airship that is constantly circling around the world. The player comes in and they get a beautiful view of the area. They're forced to have a beautiful view of the area. You are forced to appreciate the area. And I'm okay with that. I'm 1000% okay with that. The player is forced to appreciate... They're forced to have a good time. The player is forced to have a good time. They're being forced against their will to look at the area and take a deep breath and just respect it. Alright, so what else do we need here? We need another meeting area. Honestly, I probably want to just... It'll probably look more like this. Get rid of that there. Yeah, that makes more sense. So what's on the other side here? we need a nook. One thing that is very important in conventions, and again, go check that other stream, is the nook. Nooks are important. A nook is just a small, quiet area that people can go and talk to their friends. Now, if this area is all out in the open, how do you add a nook? Well, I want to add a hole. I want to add a broken part of this area that goes down. A small little crumbling area that leads to an underpath. What's in the underpath? Well, let's figure that out in a sec. But first, let's talk about the fact that it exists whatsoever. What color am I putting that? Let's go something like this. So that leads to a small carved out area. The one in Ferality, actually I can probably pull up exactly what it was, but that will look more like some of this industrial steampunk, and this will actually have some of the cracked aesthetic, which we see in things like BioShock that take some of that steampunk conceptualization and shatter it. This is where it might start to feel a little bit more diesel punk, because it'll be a bit more industrial. There we are. So down here we're going to have a little nook, a little reading nook. It's going to be a peek at the underbelly that most people wouldn't see from above. Think of it like the inside of the aperture regions in Portal. You know, it's the area where the player gets to feel like they're peeking behind the scenes. Now, obviously they're not, but from the character's perspective, they are. The player's not peeking behind the scenes because obviously you put that there. When the player peeks behind the scenes, it's because they got out of bounds or something. This is when the character that the player is playing as peeks behind the scenes. When the character that the player is playing as peeks behind the scenes, they can see a maintenance room. So this is a cracked hole, and there should be two ways to get here. So we'll also say that there are some open pipes down here that lead down. So here, let's get a good bronze color. And here we can just say there are some pipes up here. Just some thick pipes, just some really thick walkable pipes. You know? And this can be still behind the railing, but it should be high enough that it's visible, right? It should be high enough that a player can see it and go, oh, hey, I wonder what's there. And then the player will find it, walk down there, and get into this little nook area. And then, the most important thing, then the player will feel clever for finding it. Same thing with this. They will find a cracked hole in the ground. They will find a broken hole in the ground. Not unlike a sinkhole, right? Not quite a sinkhole. But, so this right here, that's a terrible picture, but it's actually the best one I have. Hold on, let me real quick see if I can figure out a better... That's a bit too much. There, that's what I'm looking for. This. So we're going to see a bit of crumble here. And this will be the way... This down here will be that pathway, which will be accessible either from here or by taking the pipes down. So we were going to put that right in this region here. And let me just make an artistic note over here for that, and I will link those two things. There we go. Good enough. That works for me. How's chat doing? You guys having a good time? You guys... Have you been quiet or is my chat stalled? I guess both are possible. So... That gives us a nook. And we have a talking area. And then this area will just be... low trim grass, low trim hedges areas. You know, just hedging. Doesn't need to have anything terribly special here. Because we have special stuff everywhere else. So more of that, just that Victorian garden style stuff. You missed what type of game / level this is for. This is for a convention space. This is for a convention space level. For the commons ground area and the artist alley area. So this is just for purely a social space. A VR game with a social space in it. This is just for socialization. And presenting artist alley stuff. And for introducing the character to the world. Because, again, this flyover is going to introduce the character to the entire world and the entire layout. So, okay, guess what? We completed the commons area. And we completed the artist alley. That's great. Now we have been streaming for an hour and 15 minutes. Jeez, wow, okay. Let me save this. Stream tools, visual references. Good. Alright, what are we going to do next? The meetup area. Now, the meetup area is supposed to be a lot more intimate. And also, this is the biggest and most important piece, right? This needs to be the most detailed, because aside from being two different sections, it's also the people's first introduction to the convention, and ideally, one of the primary areas where people are socializing. Now, people are going to be socializing also in the meetup rooms. Meetup rooms are specifically for get-togethers of people who are interested in a certain thing. So at a sci-fi convention, this could be like the Star Trek meetup, or the Homestuck meetup, or the anime meetup, or the whatever have you. At an anime convention, it's everybody who's cosplaying from Inuyasha show up here at this time, you know, or all the VTubers that are here can show up in here and talk together. For a furry convention, it's everybody who is a dog shows up here at this time. These are smaller, more intimate areas that are still primarily for networking and talking. So what do we do for them? I actually want to go in a different direction for these. That's going to be interior, because these are supposed to be more intimate areas anyways. These are supposed to be a little bit more close-knit. Steampunk Connells or whatever. I love this, I really do. And in this, we want it to be indoors. We want this to actually be indoors. So what does a steampunk area indoors look like? Well, I got ideas. You guys got ideas? You know what? Let me throw this at you guys first. What do you guys think the indoor area should resemble? Because I will tell you my ideas. I'm just gathering a couple of reference images right now. Indoor for the meetup area. We're looking at the meetups. Meet and greet regions. Big gears, large pipes. Okay. What else am I looking for here? I'm pulling up a couple of visual image references here. A lower class / industrial area. That, actually, I do plan on using that aesthetic, but I plan on using that later on. But that is a very good aesthetic, a very powerful one. This one I actually kind of want to go in the opposite direction. I want this one to be classy as heck. But yeah, no, I think that in more refined areas, I think lots of filigree. Agreed. So what I'm thinking for this, so what I'm thinking right now, so you guys, just to let you guys know, Dealer's Hall, I want to do a lower class industrial area. And the meetup area I want to take more of inspiration from a club, from a hunter's lodge. Or an explorer's lodge. Oh no, I can't look up Explorer's Lodges because it's a term used by Disney. So every single image is Disney. No! Oh, that's the worst thing that could have happened. That genuinely will make it impossible to search for Explorer's Lodge. Oh, that's exactly... Okay, I found it. I found exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so first of all, the entrance. Once again, the entrance is important. Use minus Disney. That's fair. I could do that. That would be smart. Yeah, if I say minus Disney, it still gives me a whole bunch of hotel stuff. It still gives me all hotels. Tragic. That's fine. I found other images. So we still need... So here's the idea. Here's my idea. The players will be going towards 2 big rooms. We have... There we go. One large room here. One smaller offshoot room here that will be connected. With the players spawning in a hallway here, which will let us do some cool windowing. This is a much smaller space. There we go. The players will spawn in here. Hold on, let me... Is that a Scott the Woz reference? Who? It might be. I reference things. I don't know who that actually is, though. What am I referencing? And hello, Sajak-me. I don't remember. It might be. I don't remember if I'm referencing anything. So, this area that they spawn in is going to be a hallway. And it want to be pretty. Huge blue border? Oh, no, that was just... I had my border thickness set a bit too high. That's literally it. No, I usually use a green border on my thumbnail stuff. I mean... This is this is the base that I use for all of my, that I use for all of my thumbnails. I use this with a background and an edit layer on it. Like this one. Actually, just left that in the same place on this one. Huh, weird. Anyways. So the entrance is going to look pretty. I like the reds. I like the extra colors. It feels a bit like it's made of excess. Take this, add a bit more brass fittings, add a bunch more clocks, like someone was saying earlier. Like Logan was saying earlier. But take this as a base concept. Let me open that up as a reference point. So something of this nature as a grand entrance region. And then what I was thinking is make the main area a library room. Actually, hold on. Let me add more canvas size. There we go, that works. And let me grab this and shove this down here. Good. Alright, so player spawns here. Again, if I were not doing this out loud, I would be putting in, you know, my notes, player spawn 1, reference here, whatever. You guys don't care. I mean, you guys care about that, but you guys don't need to see that right now because you're hearing it may say it with word voices minds. So the player spawns here, walks down the hall, and goes into this room. What is in the big room? I want it to be a library room. You know what I mean when I say library room? A nice Victorian library room. What could be more steampunk than those sort of giant walls of library books that encompass the entire room? And library rooms lend themselves very well to having 2 stories, right? You can have 2 stories and ways to go up, which gives this area a natural expansion path. Hold on. Let me switch over audios. Retro. This is my retro music here. Can we actually still see this? One second, I was checking something real quick. Oh, cool, that's still visible. So we want to have this to be... Oh, that's an even better picture. Let's use that one instead. That is going to... I want to be the primary aesthetic of this room. But I want to have a giant tree in the middle. Let me get that nice brown here. And then have a giant tree in the middle. And at the base of the tree is visions of downstairs. Not, you can't actually go downstairs, and even if the player jumps in there, it'd still be invisible walled, or invisible floored in this case, I guess. And if they look up, they can actually see branches coming off from the tree, and then, you know, green and whatnot. This will create a beautiful set piece, a beautiful centerpiece here. That should be very appealing and very iconic, right? It should be another jaw-drop moment. And again, I don't want the player to spawn here because I don't want them to spawn in with this tree. I want the player to spawn here, walk forward themselves, and then see the tree by turning the corner and going, oh, whoa! That is part of how you create a moment, you know? You don't throw the player into a moment. You set the player up to see the moment. If you throw the player into a moment, it actually loses its impact. But by creating this moment for the player and letting them arrive at it, even though you're guiding them, it'll feel like they're getting to there themselves. It'll feel like they are getting there of their own activity and choice. Even though you are definitely holding their hand, the players will feel clever. So, you have a giant tree, you also have a second floor. And then the second floor needs to be easily accessible. And then I had an idea of letting the players actually get to the lower branches. Actually have the players have the lower branches have a couple of platforms on them so that the players can hang out on them. Just directly above the area below. I don't know. I think it's a neat idea. So we have a library room. We have a beautiful entrance hall. We have a secondary hangout spot up here. We have primary hangout spots in here. Secondary hangout spots on the tight balcony. Tertiary hangout spots in the leaves of the tree. Quadriary hangout spot is going to be over here, which is going to be the hunting lodge. Or explorer's lodge, if you prefer. Yeah, well, I'll show it to you first. This is the general idea. And as I said before, this is where we can overlap a little bit of the artist's alley into the... I don't... Hold on. Let me just harvest this part here. There, that's the important part visually. Just grab that and put it up here. Perfect. Now, you have to be careful. That board is getting really covered and stuff. Yeah, that happens. That will happen naturally. But these are just, you can actually make these smaller. I'm just trying to make it more visible on the screen, on the stream, but it probably still isn't, frankly. But again, if you're doing this actually for a team, you can make these a lot smaller. If you are doing this for a team, you can literally just make this a thumbprint size here, because you'll be including all of the original images in the same documents. You'll be including all of the images that you used for the scheme layout. So the person just needs to see, okay, that and that references here, and that looks like these elements here, and okay, got it. We want to combine X, Y, and Z. That's fine. Don't, you know. So this is getting a bit crowded, but again, it's a small space, and I don't plan on making the space itself much bigger, though I do have one little trick I want to add. Also in here, I want to break out one of these walls. Instead of having... So I do want to have the second floor, but I actually want to put it on the inside, the path upwards on the inside wall. So the path upwards leads here. That way when the player first walks in, they can immediately turn left if they feel so inclined. And this leads up, and then you have to go underneath this here. And then this goes over here. Beautiful. Why did I do that? Because I want to have a wall of windows. I want to have this last wall here be windows. Let's do this here as a reference to say that you can see to the outside from there. And then from here you can see the windows, and guess what? Guess what, friends? We're coming full circle. Because in this major area, if the player looks out, they can see the convention space. They can see this area here. So which means we need a world map. That's right. You thought this was just gonna be a couple of discrete spaces? Nah. We got a whole world on our hands now. We have an expanded convention universe space. And a flag of somewhere right now. So here is going to be the main area. I'm not even going to attempt to draw it. And then this building can be here. Meetup space can view out and see the airship circling, and the lobby area. You see what I'm saying? You see how I'm linking these places together? That was one thing I didn't like at Ferality, is that you didn't have any connective tissue. Technically, you had a map. Like, okay, technically speaking, at Ferality, you did have this map of what the area theoretically looked like, but there was no connective tissue between these spaces. If you went to events or if you went to lobby, they were all the same aesthetic and it was consistent, but you couldn't see the giant towering thing from events, even though you... Well, actually, I think you could have seen it from events. You couldn't see the giant towering thing from meetups, even though you should have been able to. You couldn't recognize where the club was from the lobby area. You couldn't see the dealer's den from meetups. And I want to change that. I want this to be interconnected. I want this building here to be able to see the other regions. There we go. And then there's the lobby. So now we have 2 pieces of a puzzle. Now, and this area is basically done. This area is basically done. So we have a lobby, a trellis up. We have some sort of platforms that will allow the player to access the upper area. And then we have this area here, which is this den. There's one little thing I want to add down here. And that's I want to add a secret wall. Because what could be more steampunk, what could be more Victorian manner than a hidden wall? And if this is in VR shop, VR chat, VR shop? Wow, I think that's a completely different thing. Or VR ship? Sure, why not? Those both sounds like great titles. And in those situations, it would probably just be as simple as walking through a painting, or having a painting that shows intentionally is off its hinges, so you can see, oh wait, there's something behind here, and then the player interacts with it, and now they're in a hallway that leads into this area. Very simple, very easy, but instead of leading to the ground floor, have it go upstairs. So this can lead to just a little outlook area, a little spot where people can hide behind a picture and look through the eye holes sort of feeling, right? Where they can go up here and say, oh, I'm above this. Neat. Oh, there's people talking down there. Oh, I'm just going to stand here and listen for a while, because you're going to I want to encourage people who are thinking in that manner, who are thinking like that. It's just a little neat trick. It's just like a little cute little bonus for people who want to do that. And that's it for meetups. That's it. I mean, the most important thing is the first area that we covered, because the first area that we covered is going to have its DNA filter through every single other area. So that's why, and that's why this one was the most ornate. I think we're good here. We have a Victorian Lounge. We have a beautiful walk-in area. We have a nice cozy place to talk. We have a cool set piece. We have 3 separate talking locations of different degrees of intimacy. One that's a bit more open in here, one that's a bit more aerial and raised up, that's going to have a different feel to it, and one in this lodge area with a cute little secret hidden path for people who might look at it. And because people are walking in here before they turn right and see the tree, people are already visually looking in this direction, so they're going to see this area anyways and might be curious and walk into it. Which means you also have to account for the players who walk in here first, and make sure that the view in from this angle is also good, because you want to make sure that their first view of this big room is good no matter where it is. This view here is going to be great anyways. If you're coming in here from above and looking down on this sort of area, that'll be a good view, almost guaranteed. Guess what, folks? That's meetups. I'm going to run really quick through main events, because main events is super easy. Main events doesn't need anything. What do you need in main events? You need a screen. That's pretty much it. You just need a screen. You just need a screen, because people go to main events for one thing, and that is to watch the main event, which is going to be a speaker, it's going to be a presentation, it's going to be a keynote, it's going to be some dude talking at a camera, right? The main events is going to be skits, or a more likely it's just going to be a TED Talk, you know? That's true of any convention. That's true of everything from the Consumer Electronics Show all the way down to your local anime convention. Main events mostly is going to be, aside from concerts and stuff, but that's usually held in, that ideally is held in a concert hall. Main events is usually just someone talking to the crowd. So what do you need here? You need a screen. Okay. How do we make a screen sci-fi? Or no, cyberpunk. Or whatever we're doing today. Steampunk. How do we make a screen steampunk? And again, steampunk is retrofuturism. how do we make a retro-futuristic screen? Well, we start by looking at the Victorian era. And the Victorian era has beautiful, stunning theaters. Old-time projector is actually too recent. Old-time projectors are... First projector was... When was that? Oh, actually, no, 1895. That actually would be pretty close to it. That would actually be about right. Okay, yeah, we could do a projector area. That's actually is an idea, but I'm more talking about the room itself, regardless. But that actually does raise a really good idea of actually having the old-timey projector visible somewhere in the theater. But I was thinking like the theater hall itself. In the theater hall itself, I'm thinking Victorian theater. I'm talking Phantom of the Opera. And then the player area can be just one box, right? The player area can just be a single box seat in this theater hall, or like possibly in the mezzanine. You know, let's go with the mezzanine. Mezzanines were in Victorian theaters, right? So why? Oh no, Sapphire. Oh, a tragedy struck. So, this means that we have a theater, and the more I think about it, the more I like that old-timey projector idea. I really do. So we have a mezzanine, we have a theater, and I want to destroy a wall. Like, real easily, like, this is just what we are going to have. What we're going to have here in our design is going to be the good seats, quote-unquote, with a wall, and then in non-player accessible areas, they'll be able to see more seats and more boxes. You'll be able to see an orchestra pit with, you know, fancy orchestra stuff. You're going to be able to see the cheap seats. You're going to be able to see a broken wall over here. Do not punch your monitor if it is touchscreen. That's just good advice. So we're just going to take this right here and just whirlwind slam that into here. Bam. Now I want to break this wall apart. Why am I breaking the wall apart? Do you know why I'm breaking the wall apart? It's to connect it, because if we don't break the wall apart, then we're entirely indoors. If we're entirely indoors, then we are not connecting the theater to the rest of the world. Remember, one of the goals is to keep the theater connected to... is to keep every area connected into the rest of the world. So where is a good picture of a second-story broken wall? You're not finding better pictures of this. I found better pictures of this when I was looking for stuff before. Oh, Sapphire, I hope you can get it. Alright, so how do we punch through this wall? Sorry, I'm just really quickie thingy, search. Oh, and just for the reference point of it, don't be afraid to use other people's images for your reference materials. Like, seriously, don't sweat that. Never, but always mark it. always mark what parts of your project are not your own or not made by anybody on your team, because you must credit them, and if you do not credit them, you will be taken to court and you will lose. So make a very, actually this is a good picture. This picture works for me. Make a very obvious reference for what things have been either photographed or otherwise used by your studio and what things have not. Okay, so what do we have going on here? This is perfect. 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 So right here we have a giant hole in a wall that looks down onto a street. I love it. This is what we want this to look like here. So on this entire wall, we want this to just look broken open. So the players exist in... No, do not do that. There we go. The players exist in this area here. And over here, they can see a giant broken wall that shows them the dealer's room. This lets players look down on the dealer's room, which means that we need to figure out where that is going to be. Here we have a building that is very tall. Remember, we have a giant tree going up through the middle, so this can be like 5th or 17th story or whatever. From this building here, just grab this color here. Let's have that building be here. And this will be the opera house. This will be a fancy Victorian opera house with mezzanine seats separated into a couple of different segments that the players only need to exist in one of them, with a giant heck-off screen that you cannot miss, and because that's what people are here for. You don't need to have anything too complicated. You don't need to have anything too over the top for the main programming, because people aren't there for the main programming world, which is the core difference between the main programming and everywhere else. The meetup area, people go there for the world and the people. The commons area, the world is the most important thing. The artist alley, the art exists in the world that it's in. In main events, people are there for main events. They do not care about things that are not main events. So, you just do this here, bam, we're done. You steampunkify this some of this area in here by adding some brass and some widgets, by making sure that there's a fancy Victorinox style speakers, by adding a beautiful old-fashioned projector down here, and by making the room client-side dimmable. Have some options on the back wall so the players can choose their dimming options. Actually, that's one thing I didn't point out in here, is that we should have the accessible mirrors. We should have the ability to activate mirrors. So here will be a mirror, and then here's the open area, and here's a mirror here. And then in the convention commons area, honestly, we could put mirrors anywhere, but one inside the forest would be a good idea. One facing away in here would be a good idea, and then one inside of the tool area would be 3 accessible mirrors, because those are important. Beautiful. Now, what are you looking down upon? You are looking down upon the dealer's area. Where is the dealer's area? Right in here, and we're going to cover that next. Now, the dealer's area is exceptionally important. Also, if you look outside as you'd expect, if you look out here and look up, because you'll be on the second floor, it'll be easier to look down. If you look up, what will you see? Obviously, you'll see the airships. Because, again, you'll be looking out, and your sightlines will be like this. Because that convention lobby area is going to be the most important piece of the entire convention, and everything is supposed to connect to it. It'll make it feel connected, it'll make it feel like you are a part of the same world at all times. So, that's main events. That's it. We're done. That's literally all we need to do for main events. Alright. What are we working on next? Dealer's Hall. Alright. What do we do for the Dealer's Hall? Now, Oh, one other thing. Well, I'll cover that in a sec. Dealer's Hall is important. And welcome back, Sapphire. Did you save your stuff? Did your stuff work? I certainly hope it did. The Dealer's Hall is critical to your convention for reasons that I covered in the other areas. You had an idea? You had another idea for the main event? I would love to hear it. What's on your brain mind thinks? Set it on an airship. That's not a bad idea. I like it. So you could actually set main events on this airship here and actually have integrated into the dock. So the dock is here, and then you can go upstairs into the airship proper, and then you could be in main events up there instead of there. Okay, but keep the same theater motif. I like the way you think. I like the way you think. That works. That could work. Yeah, that works fine. I like it. You could still keep the hole, except it would, well, it wouldn't be a disruptive hole, is the only difference. The hole wouldn't be a broken hole. It would have to be a beautiful hole, so to speak. I was thinking about keeping some of the crumbling aesthetic from the main lobby area, because I think that's kind of cool and it looks neat. And taking that crumbling aesthetic that we integrated over here into the into this wall. But I think if it's not, well, I could still do that in the airship. It could still just be an airship that has a hole in it. That's fine. Still flies. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Oh, and in all the shots, when you can see the other area, you just make little NPCs. You make little low poly NPCs walking around so that you just have, yeah. So you have people who are, so that it looks populated, right? You won't be able to actually see anywhere else. You won't be able to actually see the main lobby area because that's completely infeasible. But you can make the main lobby area visible, and you can make a couple of low poly NPCs walking around so that it looks like it's actively populated. That would add a lot. Just go low poly so that, because you're going to be far enough away that you won't be able to see it because you'll be looking from this angle, or you'll be looking at it from this angle. So it'll be far enough away that you can get away with it. And it shouldn't be too much processor overhead, even for a VR space. Ideally. Ideally. So, dealer's area. What they did at the last VR convention I went to. Let me actually pull up exactly what they did, because I kind of like what they did, but it's not how I'm going to do it. What they did is very clever. They split their dealer's room into 4 segments, and each of these segments has a bunch of booths in it. And if you want more information about how it's laid out, you can go check the other stream again. I keep on referencing it because that's kind of like, you know, a good setup to what we're talking about here. Perfectly fine. But this serves a couple of purposes. One, it segments the dealer's sections apart. It means... Oh, autosave has everything? Fantastic. It means that everything that loads here might unload when the player goes here. And I don't know if multiple areas load together. I feel like they would, but you need to make sure that you need to make sure your dealer's room has a couple important things. One, the dealers need 2 walls and a backdrop. 2, the dealers need to be able to put their own works in there and have you install them. So the dealers will provide you what's going to be on the walls of their shops. And 3, you need to make sure you don't crash your own server by having 50 people in the dealer's room at the same time, all loading 500 textures. So, I want to lay this out quite differently. I want to take the dealer's room concept and put it in the streets. This is where I want to put that lower class aesthetic. This real dark, more, not this one, more of the grit. More of the grit in it that you see in the darker steampunk aesthetic. Something like... Not that bad. Okay, let me see a dark steampunk city. Let me just use steampunk city. Searching for reference material. Anyways, I want these to be alleys. I want the dealer's alley to be actually alleyways. I want to take the dealer's room, and here is the entrance area. Well, okay, no, hold on. Let's take the same windowing process we've been doing before. So you start back here, and this is a big building. This is a big building. This is a big building. Actually, wait, how do I want this? I want there to be 4 lanes. Instead of having these bubbles serve the purpose of allowing the players to walk around them, but it's just a linear path. It's functionally just a linear path. People can go one way or the other way. It makes very little difference. What I want to do is I want to make them into lanes. I want the players who walk in to take the path here, here, and then have 1, 2, 3, 4 lanes where they can go here, up, return, here, up, maybe even like that to make, well, we want to be the same distance. We want it to be the same distance. So from here, go up, like that. Likewise here, and then meet up at a second place that has a secondary set piece involved. Which means that we have buildings here. Yeah, so a building here. A building here. This can be the same building here. And then we have something that blocks life here. It could be another, just these are all big buildings. These are all alleys. This does not look very good. I'll be fixing it in a moment, don't worry. And then this over here is just more building work. Now I'm going to grab all of these red bits and delete them. Hold on. There we go. There, perfect. So, the pathways become, and I'll do this in a much smaller brush, become entrance area here, settings area here. Players walk in and can either go this path here, and I guess these two, you know what? These two buildings can connect. These two buildings right here connect. That's one building. The players don't need to think about whether this space is realistic, because in the moment the player will be lost. Not lost as in they don't know where they are or what direction they're going. The player will be lost in the sense that they're not going to be thinking about the overhead geography of the area. These are going to just become alleys to them. So if there is a thin wall here that has the aesthetic of a building, that's fine. That's enough. That's plenty. Because a player here and a player here won't recognize that those are that is a building that is a meter thick, right? That's going to appear just as like, okay, I can look up and I can see a building. It's only going to become a problem here. And you'll need to figure out something for that. And the easiest thing to do to solve that would be to have this path go up like, well, go up here. So this player so it thickens here, but the player that's walking down here won't realize that this goes down into functionally narrow, and then the player who walks down here will be reconnecting with the rest of the world once they get into the final area. And then you have another set piece in that final area. Does that make sense? So then we have a set piece in this area here. So, in this central area, the player has the important booths. That is to say, the booths of the staff members, realistically. If we're being honest, this is booths of the staff members. And then along each path, you have blocks. The blocks are all going to be in alleys. Well, let me check the thing that was sent. One moment here. Oh, that's for the club. Okay, cool. Honestly, the club is the one where I have least ideas, so that's actually very useful. Okay, anyways. Each of these are going to be booths, with the player being able, with the dealers being able to put their own stuff on each wall, I think on the back, and then if they pay a little bit of extra, let them put a sandwich board out front. I actually think it's a really cute idea. Let the player put a sandwich board out in the front of their booth for an extra 10% of whatever their booth costs. Yeah, that'll give them one extra asset to encourage people to come in their store, much like a real sandwich board. And it'll also give you an extra little bit of revenue that the people who are interested in your convention are going to be very happy to provide. So this path goes here. And what these 4 paths represent entirely depends on the nature of your convention. This can be, like for the furry convention that I went to, these were all model bases or modelers who would do editing work or designers. For an anime convention, this could be merchandising, this could be commission work for artists, this can be people promoting other anime conventions. For a sci-fi convention, this can be artwork that you can purchase. Like, this can be any number of different things, you know? That didn't work. There's a leak. Where's my leak? Shouldn't be leaking. Wait, what? Oh, it's from this area. Oh, it's absolutely leaking. Disregard. Perfect. So this is the dealer's room. Because the most important thing, this will give you these alley-long streets lined with booths along each side. And these just go across the entire convention space, realistically going into the buildings themselves. In here, you can put them all on one side, because you have the thin wall, or you could just make this wall go out farther and then thicken this and make these the booths right here, right? You could just, push that out and make the booths like this and have the pathway down here. Whatever works for your area. Whatever works for the area. And then there's a pretty thing here, and people can go down one path and then go down another path, and then go down the other path and then go down the last path. And that will give them that walking down a busy street feeling. It'll give them almost a... I think this would also work extremely well for a cyberpunk convention. For if you're going sci-fi, you could do this in the cyberpunk style, because that's the kind of aesthetic I'm looking for. It's a little bit less Victorian, admittedly, but you can clean up that with all the other stuff. And then what is you see here? Guess who wants to guess what this set piece is? Who wants to guess what this set piece is? I mean, you got one guess and you already know the answer. It's the ability to see the main lobby area to connect the areas together. Come on, you guys knew that. You guys knew that. Do not pretend that you didn't see that coming. That's like the entire thesis of what I've been saying is interconnectivity of the world. So if you come in here, you have that view towards the rest of the world. You see what I'm saying? Do you understand where I'm going with that? So you take the similar idea to this, because they have a very good idea here, but you split it up a bit more, and you double down on that Victorian aesthetic, that Victorian streets, but you take it in the direction of a cyberpunk street. The cyberpunk streets are... Where is a good one picture? Not in aesthetic, but in layout, right? Not in aesthetic, but you can take the layout of the cyberpunk street, of these street stalls, which is actually something that's more... yeah. And then give them the sandwich, give the dealers the sandwich board, give the dealers these street stalls, give the pathings a nice aesthetic of cyberpunk, of steampunk. But this cyberpunk street stall on each side, I think, would fit the needs of the dealer's room very well. And you can add in a couple of, smoke generators. You can add some broken piping. You can add a billion things of dirt and grime. You can add, all these buildings can be multiple stories. You can have them, as high as you want. Some of them need to be higher than others to create a disparity of size. You should be able to see the airship at a couple of points. You should be able to see the high-rise buildings at a couple of points. You should be able to see a lot of other locations on here. What do you guys think? That sound neat? That sound good? I hope so. And that leaves us with just the club. Now, I don't know clubs. I am not a clubber. I had a blast the last one I went to, but that was like the first time I legitimately went to a club for any significant amount of time. So where is the club? Well, we got a nice little open area here. Why not? Or we could have the club in the dealer's area, sort of feel like a dark and seedy underbelly club. The under street side of cyberpunk is one option we could do. There's a couple of options we could do. There's a couple of thoughts we could do. That's almost leaning more into the cyberpunk nature of the dirty streetlands. And I don't know that it's a good idea, but I have no idea how to shove, Logan says, on an airship again. And while that is valid, I don't think we can use that for more than one thing, right? We have a mandatory airship ride, and we have one area in an airship. I don't think we want to push it too hard, right? I don't think we want to do too many... where did that go? I don't think we would want to do multiple airships. I don't think several airships is a good idea. I mean, well, we have several airships. I don't think we want to have several airship locations because we don't need them. We can do it. We can make more interesting areas. So what other interesting areas can we do? What is a Victorian club like? Nothing like what people are going to want. And this is a stumbling block, right? This is genuinely going to be a stumbling block because what people want from a club needs to fit a certain aesthetic. A club needs to be a club because, first and foremost, it needs to function as its space, right? In the same way that main events needs to function as main events and show off the screen as its biggest thing, in the same way the dealer's room needs to have a whole bunch of dealer's booths because that's what it's there for, the club is going to need to be, first and foremost, a dance club. And if we do a Victorian dance hall, it's just not gonna work. Like, I'd be fine Charlestoning in, there we go, in a Victorian dance hall. Sure, that would be cool as heck, but it wouldn't serve the needs of a club. It wouldn't serve the needs of the nightclub, of running, because they're going to be putting on rave music. They're going to be putting on the closest thing you're going to get to actual Victorian music at your convention that you're hosting in the year of our Lord 2022 might be electro swing. And I love electro swing, I really do. But the aesthetics of the Victorian dance hall, these, you know, frankly beautiful settings, will not suffice. So we can't use the steampunk nature of cyberpunk, of steampunk. We can't use the Victorian nature of steampunk to create the club. We have to go elsewhere. We must go elsewhere simply because nowhere else is going to work. Nothing about the classical Victorian steampunk was going to make a good club. And again, filling the needs of the space is your top priority. And I feel like I've done that everywhere else, right? I feel like this genuinely does give us rooms for 100 odd booths, more. This gives us rooms for as many dealers' booths as we want. This gives us the best view of a projector for people and the fewest amount of distractions for main. This gives us multiple separate places. Why not make the steampunk mimic the future nature of the dance hall? How do you... please go elaborate on that. I like where you're going. I want to hear more about that. I made an Among Us in the tree. I am so sorry. I feel so much shame right now. Oh my gosh. I genuinely made the tree in Among Us. That's my greatest shame. Okay, that's better. The meetup serves the area, the goal of having 3 separate meetup locations of varying degrees of coziness and intensity for people to talk. This serves the purpose of being a set piece. This serves the purpose of presenting Artist Alley artwork. This serves the purpose of being a place for people to get to hang out and feel like they're part of something big. Feel like they're a part of a major set piece. Not just being in a set piece, not just having a set piece around. This fulfills the desire for the players to be in the set piece. But the needs of the dance hall is that it has to be a dance hall first and steampunk second. And a genuine steampunk dance hall is gonna look terrible. Which is why I kind of want to go back to cyberpunk for it, because I feel like cyberpunk does have things like that. Have the things that people would expect, but made out of steampunk things. That doesn't really give us something to work with. That doesn't really answer the question of what we're creating, right? That's a very loose statement. I see what I kind of see what you're saying. But how does it tie in, right? Where's the connective tissue in what you're saying, you know? Where is the connective tissue in there? Now, here's what I'm going to propose. This right here is Cross Club, which is a nightclub in Prague. And this is going to be my template for the dance hall. I'll show you a picture on stream in a few moments, Safi. I wanted to finish my own concept first. Because look at this. Now, this right here isn't, right? This just isn't a dance hall. This isn't a dance hall. This is a bar. And it's supposed to be a bar. This is a bar. This is literally a bar. Like, here's the bar. Here's the bar part of the bar. And this is very much, again, more of that leaning towards that cyberpunk with the bright colors, but again, it has to be a club. You have to have neon flashing lights because that's what's going to be enticing people into the music. You want people to move to the beat. You want the people to move to the dance, to the shimmy, to the beat. That's the whole point. So instead of taking instead of making the steampunk into a club, you make the club into a steampunk. which is kind of what Logan is getting at. I think that's what you're trying to say. I could be wrong. I don't quite parse exactly your phrasing there, but you take, yeah, exactly, yeah. You take the club, you just make a good nightclub. You know, you just make a good nightclub. And again, I'm no expert on nightclubs. You just take a good nightclub and turn it into a steampunk venue. Now, I always am afraid of what I pointed out at the beginning of losing the roots of steampunk. Because grilling a gear onto a wall does not make something steampunk. We've established that at the beginning of the stream, and it remains true. If you just, you know, hot glue a gear onto your outfit, you can probably sell it as steampunk and some guy's going to buy it, but that doesn't create a compelling world. That doesn't create a compelling and interesting world. Hello, Otaku Moogle. Welcome. So, you know, so just adding the trinkets of steampunk doesn't make a world steampunk, which is why the interconnectivity is going to be so important and so difficult here. We need to make it part of the world. We need to make it something that connects to the rest of the steampunk aesthetic. We need to make it something that follows the theming of the other worlds. But moreover, it has to feel right as a club. It has to feel right as a dance hall. And that's why I think that this is going to work. And honestly, layout, map design wise, it's a room with flashing lights. What do you want from me, right? Like, you don't need to have a whole lot of fanciness. I like the idea of this terrace, of the trellis terrace, if you will, or if you won't. That's fair. Honestly, you probably shouldn't. But let's just say that you have an indoor club, an outdoor terrace that's story up, a path from A to B. So this is just a staircase that goes up, or, you know, that goes up and leads outside. And this is a place where you can hear the music, but it's a bit brighter, a bit less intense, right? Could Moogles be steampunk? Anything can be steampunk if you do it well, but to do it well, like we've been discussing, is that you need to be able to embrace the Victorian nature of steampunk to really access the conceptualization of it well. Because it's retrofuturism. It's taking the past view of what the future could be like. Moogles are inherently fantasy, of course, obviously. But if you could make a steampunk Moogle, if you wanted to go to the effort to figure out a way to make them first Victorian, and then push them forwards towards that direction. So I'm late. Were we focusing more on the steampunk part or more on the punk? That's a fair question, and the answer is that we're focusing on retrofuturism. We're focusing on the concept of retrofuturism, which is the idea of how people from the past saw the future, because that's the heart of steampunk. And for Otaku Moogle, that's actually where you're going to find the most difficulty in making a Moogle steampunk. Is you're going to have to say, well, steampunk is how did people from the 1900s see the world of the year 2000? And the answer to that is they didn't, because that's a fantasy construction, right? That's just being honest with you. That doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you need to find a way first to install your Moogle into a Victorian era, and then take that Victorian era and push it towards a different type of futurism, a different type of view of the future. So let's keep this outdoor trellis, because you want to have a little bit of a cool down area, a place where people can more relax, where people can just vibe, right? This will have some outdoor places. You'll still have all the sound of the music coming in, but people will be able to come out here as a little bit less intense area. And then you'll have the actual DJ stand somewhere around here. And we're mostly going to model it after... Actually, hold on, can't add more canvas because we're about to need a whole bunch more. And for the outdoor area, I'm genuinely just going to heavily cop from this area, from this one particular club, because it really hits the aesthetics that I'm going for. This right here can be turned into something like what the DJ has around their entrance. You would argue that Final Fantasy VI had plenty of steampunk in it. True. Yeah, Final Fantasy VI is very steampunk. The Magitech, the concept of Magitech itself has a lot of steampunk concept to it. It is taking the retro of fantasy worlds and pushing it into the futurism of Magitech. The retro futurism of Final Fantasy, yeah, is Final Fantasy VI. Yeah, I would 1000% agree with that. But to take a Moogle specifically, and yes, I know Mog comes from 6, I know. I did a whole Final Fantasy VI playthrough, and it's one of my favorite playthroughs on the entire channel. That said, taking a Moogle a Moogle is not inherently something that fits that. And in Final Fantasy VI, the Moogles represent the retro part of it. Moogles represent the holdout of the purest of fantasy that has been all but eradicated from the world. The Moogles represent the fantasy race that is on the cusp of dying out and is clustering together because the world is something that no longer allows a fantasy race like Moogles to really exist and flourish in it. Which is why it's going to be harder to make a steampunk Moogle, because you're trying to take something that is literally indicative of a difficulty of existing in that world and saying, okay, how can we make this exist in that world? You can staple a rivet on it and sell it to somebody, but that's not going to actually embrace the embodiment of steampunk. So I would say first, again, look for a cool way of making a Moogle Victorian, and then pushing it into a retrofuturism conceptualization. Because we're getting real posh here. We're getting artsy. There's no way around it. This is a game dev stream. We're going to get super artsy in here. All right. This is a really cool concept that Sapphire did for the dance club, and I like it. I like these structures full of what I'm going to assume are various neon-colored light bulbs, the steampunk style, the early light bulbs. I'm going to assume that these are Edison bulbs. That's what I'm thinking of. Grab an image of one. You make this thing full of Edison bulbs, and then, ooh, Tesla coils. Ooh, I like where you're coming from in there. Yeah. So we add a couple of these Edison bulb trees that Sapphire conceptualized here. And then we can add a couple of Tesla trees on the other side. The Tesla trees will be glowing fancy neon, etc. And these Edison trees will be ooh, yeah. There's more steampunk light bulbs. You can just buy Edison bulbs, by the way. You can just like literally go to the store and buy Edison bulbs, and they look cool. And I think you can even get LED Edison bulbs now. But yeah, you just get something, a whole bunch of these on the wall. Something that and almost push it towards a little bit of industrialism, right? Ooh, there's a cool image. I just want to show this off. That's just a cool picture. I love it. That's beautiful. That would be a good sculpture in the yard. So we have the club, the Edison trees around here, and then the Tesla trees here, and then we have the terrace area outside. Now, how do people get inside is the next question. And I don't 1,000,000% have an answer for that. Because we need to have... I like the idea of people walking into the club, not starting in the club, right? You don't want people to spawn in right in the middle. You don't want people to spawn in right here and just be like, oh, I'm here now. you want to present it. You know, that's something I've been hammering on because that's a very important game design concept, and that's something that I want you guys to be thinking about when you're designing your worlds. And again, I'm making this for you guys to think about your own worlds, right? That's why I'm streaming this. That's why I'm live. That's why you guys like me. I hope you like me. If you guys like me, leave a comment and like the video. If you don't like me, I'm sorry. I'll do better. So, what do we do here? I think that we have the people come in from the street. I think that we have the people come in off the street. So we have just a street. And then along the street, on the sides of it, we have whatever, doesn't matter. The players spawn here, can come down the street, and they actually walk in underneath the trellis. Let the trellis see the street. That way, people who want to people watch can actually stand up here and see the people who are spawning in, right? Maybe, actually, better yet. Have the players spawn in across the street. Yeah, that way we can hide the entrance. We can hide the spawn point. So if we have let's make this a street here, and then have the players spawn in far enough back that the line of sight from the trellis blocks the spawn point. So if you are up here, you can't see the actual spawn point proper, but people will spawn in here, they will see the club, they'll go here underneath the trellis and walk into the club area. If they want, they'll see the trellis so they know it's there. There actually was a breakout spot in the Ferality Club that was a really nice cozy area that no one went to because no one knew it was there. And this way, you have that little quieter area that you can people watch and see people running in if you want to watch that. Because that's actually pretty fun sometimes. But people immediately are aware of its presence. So people come in here and go into the area itself. I should make all those a different color, because that is motion lines. Give me brighter. That's too bright, actually. So there's the line of motion. People spawn in here, walk towards the club. You can invisible wall off these areas easily. Just, you know, grab a random color. Just invisible walls off here. That's fine. People will find the invisible walls, but hopefully they won't care. You could technically even do a barricade of like a stagecoach here if you want. Doesn't make too much of a difference. And you could also add a back room. I actually like that idea as well. Actually, ooh. Oh, you made me do a brain think right there. What if there's a speakeasy? Now, steampunk is a little bit early for speakeasies, right? Steampunk is inherently a 1870s to 1890s aesthetic look projected to the future, usually. It varies, obviously. There's a lot of things going on. And speakeasies are, very American, because that was a prohibition thing. But that 1920s style is very prevalent in a lot of things that we're working with. And a speakeasy bar would be real cool. So yeah, I love that idea. I love that secret backroom idea. That's phenomenal. I love it. So let's add that here. We need to make it something that's obvious, but quote-unquote hidden. You know what? No, let's not make it obvious. Let's not make it obvious at all. Let's just have a door here with a bouncer. Just have an NPC bouncer standing there. Sure. Or just have a door that's open. Just have... Oh, there it is. No bouncer. Have a door that looks like it's the wall. Have a door that looks like it's supposed to be flush with the wall, except it's not. So the player immediately looks at it and says, oh, this is clearly supposed to be a hidden room that somebody left open. So the player recognizes it simultaneously as a room that is hidden and supposed to be obscured, and a room that is accessible because it's obviously out of place. Again, the player won't necessarily feel clever for finding it because it'll be kind of obvious, but the player will look at it and recognize it as a hidden room all the same. Then you have a hidden room down here that's a speakeasy bar. I love that idea. That's beautiful. That's the finishing. That's the touch we needed. I'm serious about that. That was, that's the last touch that this needed to work. Because I was looking at this like this too simple a design. There isn't a flourish. There isn't a specialty here. There isn't really a thing here that sets it apart. And you found it. You just straight up found it. Oh, by the way, this terrace is outdoors, obviously, so you can see the street, you can see the walls. And if you look down this way, what do you see? If you look out this way across these sight lines, what do you see? You guys know the answer to this by now. You guys know where we're going with this. You see the same set pieces. If you are on the terrace, you see the set pieces from the rest of the convention. From here, you can see the airship, and you can see the Great Bridge. You can see the Garden Bridge. So we have everything we need. We have a common area. We have a common area. The common area modeled after Garden Bridge with a beautiful entrance point, a beautiful vista, and some excellent places to chat. We have... Let me get rid of a bunch of these extra tabs for visual references that we no longer are going to be looking at, because I think we found it. I think we're good. I think we did it, folks. There we go. We have all of this here. We have a functioning artist alley with pathways down that can show a bunch of different themed booths, up to 4 different... I mean, honestly, you could lay out the alley however you wanted. That leads to a beautiful set piece. What is that set piece? You can see the Garden Bridge. You have an airship, either an airship piece. Yeah, you have a high-rise over here. You have a high-rise building, a skyscraper, an early skyscraper. What's in that early skyscraper? A stunning tree, a hunter's lodge. You have a hidden passageway. You have a library room. You have a way to get up onto the treetop itself. A bunch of little meeting places to fill the role. And you have a view of the airship and the Garden Bridge. You also have, on the airship itself, because I think it's a fantastic idea, a main events, which is extremely pretentious but not excessive. Which has the lobby area, a simple place to exist, some settings, a big screen to watch main events, a fancy projector, some nice steampunk aesthetic design in here, and a big open either window wall or a hole or a porthole or a broken hole. What doesn't matter. I would leave that up to the art designer who would to finish this off. This is level design, not art design. And what do you see from there? Well, you're on the airship, so now you can see everything. You can see the Garden Bridge. You can see the dealer's room. You can see... Yeah, that's the other thing, is from this platform up here, you can also see everything. You can see all of the important spaces of the convention. Interconnectivity, folks. So what do we have? Everything we need. Commons, meetup area, dealer's hall, main events, club, artist alley. The only other thing we could add in here would be a private conference area, but that's easily done anywhere else, or just use the meetup area. You could also add a gaming area, but that doesn't need to be attached. That can be abstracted, because most of the games you'd be using in a VR space would be just porting existing games, like, you know, VR Chat Among Us, VR Chat Overseer, VR Chat Mafia, whatever. So you don't actually need to have exact convention style versions of those because, well, that's a lot. That would be way too much work. That would be an unfeasible amount of work for this, for what we're working on, for what we're attempting, for what we're creating. And that, my friends, is the convention. And moreover, it's also and as you guys saw, as much as we were talking about the convention space, a big part of this was just talking about how to conceptualize retrofuturism and how to design levels that are both functional in the space that they're supposed to be functional for, and hitting the aesthetic that you want, and keeping a interconnectivity between them, because that's critical. And I hope that this has been helpful to you. Genuinely, this might exist. For all I know, I'll be put on staff. Hey, you know what? If you know of an online convention space that might need somebody to work on stuff, send me their way. If you know anybody who needs a voice actor, send me their ways. If you know anybody who wants me to do streaming stuff, send them my way and tell them to watch my streams. Genuinely, that's the best thing you can do for me. The best thing you can do for me is to let people know that I exist. And I would appreciate it. I really genuinely do appreciate it every time that somebody does that. Every time that somebody says, hey, here's this VTuber. They do game dev streams and play video games. It makes my heart happy. I can feel it. You think I don't, like, no? I know. I can see it. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, do all those wonderful things that I desperately need and am terrible at. And I will see you tomorrow for more things. Cheers, friends.